What if the story of humanity is older than we think? What if, long before the pyramids, long before Sumer or Egypt, another civilization once rose and then disappeared without a trace? As we explore this forgotten chapter of Earth's possible past, consider subscribing to Late Earth, where we uncover the hidden layers of human history, one quiet mystery at a time. Human history, as most of it is known, begins with writing. It is through written records that the cuneiform tablets of Mesopotamia, the hieroglyphs carved into Egyptian stone, and the scripts of the Indus Valley mark the boundaries
between what is called history and what remains prehistory. Beyond this threshold lie
tens of thousands of years where people lived, created, and adapted, but left behind no written words to describe who they were or what they knew. In the conventional timeline, civilization is thought to have emerged around 5,000 years ago. Before that, slowly learning to farm, to build, and to settle. Yet, there is something strange about how the story begins. The first cities seem to rise almost fully formed, with organized governments, complex religions, and advanced. The leap from small Neolithic villages to great city-states appears sudden, as if a long chapter of preparation were missing from the record. Archaeologists and historians describe this as the dawn of civilization. But even the word dawn, in every culture that remembers its own beginnings, there are myths of a lost age. An earlier time, the Sumerians spoke of the Anunnaki, beings who came from the sky to give knowledge. The Egyptians described the time of the Zep Tepi, the first time when divine beings ruled before the age of men. In Mesoamerica, there were the gods of Quetzalcoatl, said to have brought the arts of agriculture and astronomy. These stories were not written as metaphors, they were recorded as memories. And although modern interpretation treats them as symbolic, their consistency across continents remains curious. The beginning of recorded history, then, is also the beginning of forgetting. When writing first appears, it does not tell the story of invention. It speaks as though writing already existed, used by the gods or the ancestors. The earliest cuneiform tablets do not record discovery, but taxation, trade, and administration, signs of a system already mature. There is little sense of experimentation or trial. The same is true of architecture. The earliest known monumental structures, such as those in Egypt or Sumer, they were the results of established skills and organized labor. How could such sophistication emerge from nothing? One explanation is that much of human development took place invisibly, in ways that left no enduring trace. Early experiments in agriculture, metallurgy, and city planning could have occurred in regions later buried or destroyed by natural forces. Entire settlements made of wood and mud may have vanished under floods or sands. But another possibility, and independent thinkers alike, is that civilization did not begin once, but perhaps more than once. The surface of the Earth changes over time. Continents move, seas rise and fall, rivers. Most of what humanity builds is temporary. Even stone erodes when given thousands of years.
It would not easily be found. Its cities might lie beneath the ocean, its artifacts crushed under sediment. What remains could appear as natural formations,
or be dismissed as coincidence. The known record of history, then, may be only a small, visible layer on a much deeper foundation. When one studies early archaeology, this idea becomes difficult to ignore. Consider the abruptness with which writing. Within a few centuries, people who had been simple farmers were calculating planetary motions and dividing the year into 12 months. The base 60 system of counting, still used today to measure time, was already well established. Lined with celestial bodies. Nothing about it feels primitive. It feels inherited. Egypt tells a similar story. The oldest and largest pyramids were not the result of gradual improvement, but rather the earliest and most precise constructions. Later pyramids, built centuries after, show signs of decline, not progress. The same pattern appears in ancient engineering worldwide. Sudden mastery followed by simplification. If civilization evolved slowly from primitive beginnings, the earliest examples should be the most rudimentary. Yet often, they are the most advanced. The traditional timeline explains this through cultural bursts of innovation. And while that may be true, the sheer synchronicity of these bursts across distant lands remains hard to explain. Around 3000 BCE, complex societies emerged independently. None appear to have borrowed directly from the others. How did this happen nearly simultaneously in places separated by thousands of miles? There are theories that humanity carries a kind of shared memory, an inherited framework of knowledge waiting to be reawakened. Perhaps when environmental conditions became favorable, when the ice retreated and the world warmed, this knowledge surfaced again.
But knowledge must come from somewhere. It must be tested, recorded, and passed on.
If the earliest civilizations inherited fragments of an older one, that might explain their sudden leaps forward, and their mysterious sense of remembering rather than discovering. Archaeology is cautious about such ideas, but evidence, especially of great age, is fragile. The further one goes back in time, the more the Earth is erased. The last ice age ended around 12,000 years ago. Before that, sea levels were more than 100 meters lower. Vast stretches of what are now continental shelves were once dry land, home to people whose traces may now lie underwater. Entire coastlines where early humans could have built settlements are now hidden beneath the waves. The story of civilization may therefore be incomplete.
In the 20th century, discoveries such as Gobekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey began to shift perspectives.
Built around 11,000 years ago, long before the rise of known civilizations, it consists of massive carved pillars arranged in circles, some weighing more than 20 tons. The people who built it were supposed to be hunter-gatherers. Yet, they managed to organize, quarry, and assemble megaliths with precision. They created symbolic art. This single site pushed back the timeline of advanced human activity by thousands of years. It raised questions, and if such a structure survived, how many others might not have? The pattern repeats in other places. The discovery of ancient roads, submerged ruins, and artifacts that do not fit their expected context. Yet, science moves slowly, and caution keeps speculation in check. Still, there is a quiet sense, even among scholars, that the story of civilization might be longer and more complex than the textbooks suggest. The edges of recorded history are not fixed lines. They are blurred and shifting, dependent on what is found and how it is interpreted. Every new discovery pushes the boundary further back, revealing that humanity's past is deeper and more intricate than once believed. Stone tools, once thought to be cave art, once considered unique to modern humans, has been found to predate them made by Neanderthals.
When one looks at the timeline of human progress, it becomes less a straight path and more a series of cycles.
Knowledge rises, is lost, and rises again. Civilizations build upon the ruins of those before them, sometimes knowingly, often unknowingly. The idea that ours might not be the first is no longer as far-fetched as it once seemed.
Only the recognition that the Earth is old, and humanity in some form may have had more than one beginning.
The challenge lies in the silence between evidence. The clay tablets and carved stones of early cities give a voice to history.
But before them lies a long night of unrecorded time. That silence is not
The absence of data, of words, of artifacts that could have spoken. It is if another culture existed before recorded history, it might have been wiped away by natural forces beyond its control. A shift in climate could erase an entire world. Myths of great floods and destructions could be distant echoes of such real events.
To those who survived, rebuilding would mean starting from nothing.
By the time writing appeared again, the connection to that earlier age would be only a whisper. They are simply where the light of knowledge begins to reach. Beyond them lies a deep, uncharted past, fall and be forgotten many times over.
To explore that possibility is not to reject science or evidence.
The story of humanity is still unfolding, and the first chapter may be older than anyone imagines.
Before the first cities, before the first words were pressed into clay, there was a long silence filled with lives that came and went, but left almost nothing behind for the modern world to see.
Not a silence of absence, but of unrecorded existence. It was during this immense span that humans became who they are.
They learned to think abstractly, to create art, to cooperate, and to build.
Leaving only faint traces that suggest how much was once there. Archaeologists call this period affluence. In school, it is often described as simple, small bands of hunter-gatherers wandering through harsh environments that the purpose remains uncertain. They carved figurines, shaped tools with precision, and crafted jewelry from bone and shell. Their societies were organized, their survival strategy adapted to changing climates, and their minds capable of deep symbolic thinking.
I think we're going to put our best foot forward and try and push through to achieve all our targets this quarter.
The silence of prehistory does not mean nothing happened. It means what happened was not written down.
In France or Chauvet in the Ardèche Valley, they are looking directly into that silence.
It's detailed, deliberate, and filled with motion. The animals drawn there are not crude sketches. They are artists were observing their world carefully, recording it in pigment long before written language existed. Some researchers even suggest that the placement of certain symbols may represent early attempts at notation, the beginnings of recording information. If so, the roots of civilization stretch far deeper than once believed. The question is not whether humans were. They clearly were. The question is whether conditions allowed it. For most of the last 100,000 years, the Earth was locked in cycles of ice and thaw. Sea levels rose and fell by hundreds of feet. Deserts expanded, forests retreated, and vast regions settlements may have formed only to be wiped away by changing environments. Entire cultures could vanish within a generation, and yet there are hints that something more organized existed. Sites like Jericho and Catalhoyuk show that even 10,000 years ago, they had agriculture, trade, art, and social structure. The people of Çatalhöyük in what is now Turkey built homes close together, in a honeycomb pattern without streets, accessible only by ladders from the rooftops. Inside their walls were painted with murals. These were not simple camps. They were towns, the result of planning, cooperation, and memory. Then it is reasonable to wonder how long it might have taken to reach that point. Culture does not appear instantly. Knowledge accumulates. Agricultural techniques, architectural ideas, and spiritual concepts likely evolved over millennia. What is now seen as the beginning of civilization might actually be its re-emergence, a return after long. The last ice age, which ended roughly 12,000 years ago, would have been a period of immense transformation. As glaciers, vast areas that once supported life are now submerged. The Persian Gulf, for example, was once a fertile valley fed by great rivers, a possible cradle of early settlements. Today, it lies beneath shallow water, its prehistoric landscapes unexplored. Similar sunken regions exist off the coasts of India, Southeast Asia, and Europe. If people lived there, their traces sealed beneath layers of sediment. What remains on land is fragmentary, a few scattered tools, hearths, bones, and carvings.
Enough to prove human presence, but not enough to reconstruct their world. Archaeology depends on what survives, and most human materials do not.
Let alone a civilization. Only under rare conditions, deep burial, volcanic ash, or dry.
For every site found, countless others are lost forever. This limitation gives a false impression of simplicity.
When only scattered artifacts survive, it is easy to assume the people who made them were simple too. But this is a bias of survival, not reality. A modern city left untended for 10,000 years would vanish almost completely, its metals oxidized. Future archaeologists might find only shards of pottery or stone foundations and conclude that 21st century humans were primitive.
The absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. It is a reflection of time's power to erase.
The silence before history also hides the origins of language. Spoken words do not fossilize. They leave no direct trace. Linguists can only estimate when humans began to speak complex languages, perhaps 50 to 100,000 years ago, or even earlier. The development of syntax, metaphor, and storytelling would have transformed human cognition. All myths
long before writing existed. An oral civilization could thrive for thousands of years, leaving behind only the faintest archaeological footprint.
The myths of later cultures might therefore be echoes of oral histories far older than anyone imagines.
Without writing, memory was survival. Songs, symbols, and rituals were the tools for preserving knowledge.
Traditions that still exist today, star lore, calendar systems, sacred geometry, may descend from these ancient mnemonic systems. When writing finally appeared, it did not invent record-keeping. It replaced an older, spoken form of it. This perspective reshapes the idea of what civilization is. It suggests that complexity does not require writing or stone monuments. It can exist invisibly, in organization, in shared belief, in language. A civilization without durable art.
If such societies existed tens of thousands of years ago, they could have left behind little that modern archaeologists would recognize.
Their tools might be mistaken for natural stones. Their settlements made of wood and earth might be gone entirely. Only a few inexplicable artifacts might remain to hint at their existence. There are anomalies that encourage maps showing ice-free coastlines, stories of ancient teachers and builders. While many have been misinterpreted or exaggerated, a few remain genuinely puzzling.
They may not prove the existence of an earlier civilization, but they remind us how incomplete the record is.
Each discovery challenges the line that separates before from after, showing that human innovation stretches much further back than the history books record. Silence before history is also psychological. Modern humans like continuity, a clear timeline from beginning to present.
Yet, the evidence suggests interruptions, resets, and forgotten ages. Around 12,000
temperatures rose rapidly. Sea levels climbed. Animal species vanished. The geologist,
possibly from wildfires or impacts. In myth, this period is remembered as the time of. As the Earth stabilized, small groups of survivors may have begun again, rebuilding from fragments of what they remembered.
Over generations, the memory of what was lost would fade into legend. Stories of golden ages, of nations. By the time writing returned, these stories had already transformed into myth. Yet beneath their symbolic layers,
To imagine this silent period, not as a void, but as a forgotten age, changes everything.
instead of a linear ascent from primitive to modern, human history might be cyclical, a pattern of rise, destruction, and renewal.
Each cycle would leave behind traces for the next to rediscover. The silence before history would then.
Understanding this requires humility. The evidence is fragmentary, the interpretation uncertain, but it also opens space for wonder. Every artifact, every cave painting, every buried site could be a window into a lost chapter of human experience. The people who lived through that silence were not distant ancestors of a lesser kind. They were humans thinking, feeling, imagining, just as capable as those who would later build the pyramids or chart the stars. The only difference is that their voices did not survive.
The silence before history, then, is not empty. It is a dense, invisible record written in the language.
And as those echoes accumulate, they begin to form a pattern, the outline of a story that suggests humanity has been here far longer.
And perhaps lived through far more than anyone yet realizes.
Stone does not speak, but it endures. When everything else has vanished, wood.
It is through stone that the oldest hints of human intelligence have reached the modern age, in the long silence before history.
Countless things were lost, Yet the stones kept their shape across deserts, jungles, and mountains. Ancient monuments rise from the ground, often weathered and broken, but still powerful in their precision. They are the clues that suggest civilization might have jinx. The story of these clues begins with the most famous of them all, the pyramids. Around the world, ancient cut and fitted with extraordinary accuracy. Egypt's Great Pyramid of Giza is the most iconic example, but it is not the only one.
Archaeology. In South America, pyramids stand in Peru and Mexico. In Indonesia, at Gunung Padang, terraces of
across continents separated by oceans, the same shape, the stepped pyramid, appears again and again. The similarity could be coincidence, a natural result of stacking stones into stable forms. But it could also be memory, an inherited design passed through time and geography. When the Great Pyramid was built more than 4,000 years ago, it was already the culmination of an architectural tradition. The precision of its construction has long puzzled engineers. The base covers 13 acres, yet its corners align almost perfectly to the cardinal directions.
The stones, some weighing more than 70 tons, were cut and transported with methods that remain uncertain.
Egyptologists explain this as the result of remarkable organization and human labor, and that explanation is likely correct. But the mystery lies not only in how it was built, but why so early architecture shows such mastery. The pyramid is
further east in Lebanon's Baalbek. Another set of stones challenges understanding. There, at the base of the Temple of Jupiter,
blocks estimated to weigh more than 1,000 tons each. They are cut with smooth surfaces and tight joints, forming part of a foundation, whose purpose is unclear. Later civilizations built atop them. But who placed the original blocks is still debated.
The Romans, skilled engineers themselves, used the site centuries later, but did not replicate such massive construction elsewhere. It is as if they inherited a foundation too impressive to match. In South America, the ruins of Pumapunku, at an altitude of nearly 4,000 meters, on the windswept plains near Lake Titicaca.
Some have right angles so sharp they could have been cut by machine. The stones are not only geometric, but standardized, as if part of an interlocking design. Mainstream archaeology attributes them to the Tiwanaku culture, which flourished around 1,000 years ago. That could be far older. As with many ancient sites, the deeper one looks, the more complex the story becomes. The site of Gobekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey adds a new dimension to this mystery. Discovered in the 9th of Losim, long before the rise of cities or agriculture. The site consists of massive stone pillars arranged in. Each pillar can weigh up to 20 tons. The people who built them were supposed to be nomadic hunter-gatherers, yet they mention these and erect megaliths with extraordinary skill. No evidence of permanent settlement or agriculture has been found nearby. Worked together and then deliberately buried the site when they were done. The purpose of this deliberate burial remains unknown. Gobekli Tepe forced historians to rethink the sequence of human development. It shows that organized, large-scale existed long before farming or cities. It reverses the assumed order of progress. Civilization was thought to require agriculture first, then settlement, then complex social structure, and finally monument building. But here is a monument that predates all of that. It suggests that advanced thought, planning, and symbolic expression came before, not after domestication of plants and animals. If such a structure survived from that era, how many others might have been lost to erosion, flood, or time? Across the world, there are sites that seem to echo this pattern. In Japan, off the coast of Yonaguni lies an underwater formation, ranges that resembles stepped terraces and flat platforms. Some researchers believe it is natural. Others argue it is a sunken. Near India's Gujarat coast, submerged structures have been found that appear to form streets and walls. Researchers revealed geometric shapes beneath deep water, though the site remains unexplored. Whether natural or human-made, essence. How many human works lie hidden beneath seas that rose after the Ice Age ended? Stone monuments are not.
Their orientation often aligns with celestial events, solstices, equinoxes, or specific stars.
Mark the summer sunrise and winter sunset. In Egypt, temples were aligned to Sirius and Orion. At Chichen Itza, the serpent shadow that appears during the equinox shows precise astronomical knowledge. Such alignments imply long-term observation of the heavens. Centuries of data recorded and preserved through architecture. These ancient astronomers did not just watch the sky, they built with it. This level of knowledge suggests continuity. Observing the movement of the stars and predicting cycles than the brief span of recorded history. The Earth's axial precession, for example, takes about 26,000 years to complete.
So for all the changes that we're going through and for everything that's happening, it's just really cool to see.
Yet, some ancient structures seem aligned to constellations as they appeared thousands of years before their construction. Either this was coincidence, or the knowledge itself was older, preserved and passed down from an earlier age. When researchers study the precision of these alignments, they sometimes find correlations that are too consistent to ignore. Sirius and Sirius, two of the most significant stars in ancient mythology. The temples of Angkor in Cambodia mirror as it appeared thousands of years ago. The layout of Teotihuacan in Mexico reflects astronomical geometry connected to Venus. Such patterns may have symbolic meaning, but they also show a global fascination with the sky that suggests if stone preserves these clues, it also conceals them. Over millennia, erosion, earthquakes, and many ancient sites are layered, new cultures constructing over old foundations. Excavating them is like peeling back layers of time, each revealing a different world. Often the oldest layers are the most mysterious, built with larger stones and
This megalithic paradox appears in places as distant as Peru, Egypt, and the Mediterranean.
the more advanced the engineering becomes, as if knowledge once declined rather than advanced. Modern explanations focus on practical reasons, materials, social organization, or religious symbolism, and these are valid. Yet the pattern persists across too many regions to dismiss as coincidence. It hints at a lost architectural tradition, one that may have spread before the known civilizations began. Stone, being durable, might be the only surviving witness of that forgotten world. Beyond their physical construction, these sites carry a psychological weight. Standing before them, one senses a connection that transcends time. The precision, the effort, the alignment to the cosmos, all suggest a worldview that saw humanity as part of a greater system, not apart from it. To build in stone was to participate in eternity, to ensure that one's presence would endure even after memory faded. For the builders, stone was both tool and message, a bridge across generations. For modern, an understanding of mathematics, geometry, and time that seems far beyond what should have been possible at their dates of construction. Science continues to refine dating methods, and with each improvement, some mysteries shrink while others expand. Carbon dating, stratigraphy, and satellite mapping provide clearer timelines, but they also reveal anomalies. Stones cut with tools that leave no clear traces. Alignments that require knowledge of celestial mechanics, and cultural similarities spanning oceans. Of course, caution is needed. Many claims about lost civilizations are exaggerated, driven by imagination more than evidence. Yet, between skepticism and speculation lies a reasonable middle ground, the recognition that the official timeline of civilization is incomplete. Every new discovery pushes back the boundary of what humans were capable of, often by thousands of years. A century ago, few believed humans could have built megaliths before agriculture. Today, it is not impossible that future discoveries could push that boundary even further. The clues in stone are patient.
They wait for interpretation. Each block, each carving, each alignment holds data.
When studied without assumption, these stones suggest that humanity's story may include forgotten chapters, or visitors from elsewhere. They may have been humans like any others, inheriting knowledge from a source that has since disappeared. Their works endure because stone resists time, even when memory does not.
They are the whisper of possibility.
the remaining words of a language that the earth once spoke.
And if the same shapes, symbols, and alignments appear again and again across the globe, perhaps they are fragments of a shared memory.
An ancient understanding, slowly rediscovered each time civilization rises anew.